So in this lesson, we're basically going to be repeating a challenge that we had done in Photoshop, where we took a city and we removed the skyline and we replaced the cloud cover and we selected different areas. We learned how to select using a mask technique and so on, and how to save selections. So we're going to be doing that using Gimp and showing how we can achieve those same functions. So I'm going to open cloud cover and hold my command key so I can do a multiple select and click open, and I'll say convert. That's fine. Okay, now the first thing I want you to notice is when you open an image in Photoshop, typically the background layer is locked. We don't see a little lock here, but essentially when it's unlocked, an alpha layer is added to the Photoshop challenge. With Gimp, you have to add the alpha layer. So in other words, if I wanted to delete this sky, let's say I take my magic wand tool here and I come over here, and by the way, I want to get the properties up for that tool. That's the first tab here for this magic wand, and I select over here, and you can kind of see the areas that have been selected on the right over here. All right, now if I hit delete, edit clear, goes white. Usually when there's an alpha layer or transparency behind it, you'd see a checkered pattern. So I'm going to edit undo that, and that's just to show that there's no alpha layer on here. So let me do Shift Command A, which is deselect. Here, none. Shift Command A. And I'm going to go to this layer, click on it, on the layer, go to the little tabs menu, and go to the layers menu and scroll down here and say add alpha channel. Let's try that same technique now. Select an area and let's go edit clear, and you can see there is an alpha layer beneath it now. Okay, so our background layer is now set up. Shift Command A to deselect. So we're going to start with 3 selection techniques, and we're going to adjust colors and saturations on this photo and remove the sky and change it with a new sky. Now the first thing I want to work with is this building over here. I'm going to take this free select tool and I'm going to click around the edge, because the way this photo is taken, you can't really use the rectangular tool to just select a straight edge, because the way the photographer was positioned and the perspective, the building has a straight face, but it's on a slight angle. So I'm going to find, right here I'm clicking right near the edge of the building, and I'm moving up along the edge like that. Come back down, join those two. Let me shift zoom in, and I could probably grab this and move it over a bit. That little dot right here, click on it and just move it over. There we go. So it's a little more aligned with the side of the building, and that's fine. Hit enter when you want your selection completed. This building, only this side is selected. If I go to colors and I go to levels, just to prove it to you, and I bring the whites way up, there you go. You can see only that building is selected. Now if I want to save this selection, come over to the right side here, just above the layers menu, and it says save the selection to a channel. Click on that. There it is down here. Rename it. I'm going to call this, double click in there to change the name, call this left building. Select. Hit enter. Okay, I'm going to come back to my layers, and I'm going to do Shift Command A to deselect everything. And just to prove that this works, let's say I'm working on my image, I want to go back to that building. I could go to my channels, click on this, and then click on this little button down here, which is replace the selection with this channel. And you notice the selection comes back. But to work on it, you have to jump back to your layers and click on the Montreal layer. And now I can start playing with this. So I'm going to go to colors, use saturation, and I'm going to bring the lightness up a bit because that automatically is going to pull some of the colors up. And the saturation of all colors, I'm going to push on those. And then I'm going to do just the yellows and reds. Let's bring the yellows way up. You can see there's a pane, a window pane right here, some yellows there. I'm really going kind of all out with this one. And same with the reds. I'm going to bring the reds up. Okay. And you know, going minus blue, reducing blue, let's see what happens there. That kind of brings it into the grays. Nothing's happening. Okay. So I've got my yellows way up. There we go. I'm on yellow now, so it's only lightening up the yellows. You can see that in the window panes. There we go. I click OK. All right. Shift Command A to deselect. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the sky. We're going to take our magic wand, that's a second selection tool, and I'm going to want to set the threshold here at about 16, because you'll notice if I put the threshold, let me double click on that number, if I put the threshold at, let's say, 100, hit enter, and I select a blue sky, you notice some of these buildings are blue, so if I select the blue sky, you'll notice it grabs all sorts of blues that are shared throughout the picture. So let's edit undo that. Let's bring the tolerance down to, say, 30. Click over here, and you notice it grabs some sky, but it's still too strong in the sense that, look, this building here kind of has that light palish gray blue, so when I clicked the gray blue part of the sky, it also grabbed some of the building. So edit undo. Because basically the way the magic wand works is, I'm going to put this down to 0 now. If I click on, say, this pixel here, it has a 0 threshold, meaning only click on the pixel I clicked on. So it grabbed one color. If I want the magic wand to grab several colors, I increase its tolerance, let's say to 12. And here, now if I click, you see it grabs a much wider range of colors. So I'm going to deselect that, Shift Command A. So basically we want to cast a net and grab some blues. And I'm going to put this up to about 16. Okay, down here. And I'm going to click on the sky. Let's zoom out. Got a relatively big part of the sky. Let's click on other areas. Notice I'm on Add to Selection. If I was on Replace the current selection, it will select a new selection but drop the old one. See? So let's go back again here. I'm going to maybe put this at 12, a little less powerful. And let's start adding to selection. So put this to Add to Selection, and let's start going to get our building. This is going to be the most time consuming because it's a complex pattern. I'm kind of using this as a guide over here to see what areas I'm missing. Gimp's a bit slow on the uptake, trying to let me know. Okay, come down here, grab a bit more. Maybe I'll put this up to 15. Go grab some more sky over here. Okay, and now maybe put this back down to 12 and start coming in here and selecting these little areas inside the building. Over here we're missing some. So I'm just going around and cleaning up this selection. It's probably better at this point to zoom in. So Shift plus to zoom in, and let's see how close we are. Okay, I'm missing a little bit over here. And you'll see that when there's a contrast between the sky color and the building, it does a pretty good job in locking in those selected areas. So far, so good. Over here, it grabbed part of this inside of the building. Later, we're going to come back and fix that. But right now, we're just double checking everything. Oh, okay, so we missed some over here in between the building. Okay, we've got that now. Over here on this side. And I see on the edge here. There we go. It's a little tighter. And we're missing a lot over here. There we go. That seems to have taken care of that. Click inside there. Maybe a bit over here. Okay. All right. Now we're going to clean up the selection. First off, you see there's a horizon along the edge here. Okay, I want to even that out. So I'm going to switch back to my freehand tool. I'm going to click right here. And I'm just going to kind of draw a line along here, right up to the building. Grab those little fragments up there too. Get those in my selection. Whoops. Here we go. I'm dragging with 2 fingers. Like when I put 2 fingers on my trackpad, I can move left or right. I'm going back to my starting point. Okay. And I'll hit enter. And now that's all added to the selection. And let's see what we've got here. That seems pretty good. This here, the sky ate part of, or selected part of the gray building. So now I'm going to put remove from selection. In other words, do not make this part of the sky selection that we've been doing. Double click so they join. Hit enter to make that selection complete. I'll probably do that over here too. Just come right down here. Go back here. Click on the starting point. Hit enter. There we go. That's cleaned up. That's not bad down there. That seems fine. Not bad. We're going to come back and get this antenna later. I'm just looking for real obvious areas that need fixing. I want to add to selection here. This is part of the sky. Switch to add to selection. Come here. And notice this is my 3rd point. If I double click here, it'll join with the first point, the starting point of my selection. Then hit enter. There, that's added to selection. Before I mentioned we'd have to fix this building, I'm going to say remove from selection. Come in here. Just come way down here on the edge of the building. Double click, they join, hit enter. There, that building's clean. And then add to selection to put sky back in over here. Double click, hit enter. There we go. Same thing here. There's a bit of sky that was missed here. Double click so they join, hit enter. That's part of it. Okay, now we just have to work on the antenna. Some of the building's antennae. So we've got some smokestacks too we're going to add. So let's grab the square selection tool, the rectangular tool, and let's put it on add to selection. Sorry, remove from selection, because we're taking this out of the sky because this is a smokestack. Hit enter. There's another one. Hit enter. I'm not going to put them all back. It's just a few. Hit enter. Hit enter. There we go. We've got a few put back. And now the ones on the main buildings. They're okay. They're okay. This one's a bit of a mess. Hit enter. And then hit enter on this. And the rest seem fine. Maybe this guy, he's a little crooked. Probably blown in the wind. Okay. That's actually too much. I'm just going to leave it the way it was. Okay, Shift minus to zoom out. Or sorry, just minus to zoom out. And you can see that there are fragments up in the sky still remaining unselected. I could keep this square selection tool and just say add to selection. Draw a big square over this area that doesn't touch the buildings. Okay, just kind of like that. And so any fragments that weren't picked up, hit enter. They are now part of it. And I think the only thing I'm missing to really complete this selection up here, I'm going to take this freehand tool, come to the edge of the building. And maybe do the same down here. Okay. So now we've got the skyline isolated. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save that selection like we did before. Come over here, save selection to the channel, name it, double click on the name there, call it skyline. That's fine. Okay. Come back to layers. So I'm going to go to edit, clear. There we go. The sky has now been removed. Now I want to push the, let's deselect here. Shift Command A. I want to push the colors up just on the buildings. There's a lot of reds in the brick and some yellows in the lights of the buildings. And I want to push those up, but I don't want to touch this building because I've already adjusted this building. And there's nothing in the sky. So really, if I want a selection of just the city without the left building, I can use a little technique here. I'll go back to channels, left building. You'll recall we hit this little button to convert it to a selection. Go back to our layers and click on the Montreal layer. So now what it has selected is this left building, but not the city. And remember, there's nothing in the sky. So what I could do is invert the selection. Go to select, say invert, and now it's only the city that's selected. So if I do adjustments, it will only touch the city. Watch, if I go to colors, levels, and I adjust this, see, it's only affecting the city. And there is no sky, so it doesn't affect the sky because we cut it out. So I'm going to go to Hue Saturation under the Color menu, and I'm going to push up the master levels on saturation. So that is all yellows, blues, whatever. Just a bit, like 10. Then I'm going to push the reds up, really push them up. Okay, watch the buildings down here. You can see these ones, these ones. Watch what happens when I bring it back to where it was and when I push it up. And the yellows. Let's check out the yellows in the lights here on the far right building and the lights in this building. Let's push the yellows up. And there you go. You see the yellows coming up there, and I'm going to click OK. All right. I'm going to do Shift Command A to deselect everything. Now the last little thing I want to select, let's do Shift plus to zoom in. This grass over here is a bit dead and dry, so I'm going to use a third technique to select. Hit minus to zoom out, and that's known as masking. And it's one of my favorite ones, but it involves an extra step. You can turn your masking on over here, down here in the lower left corner of your screen, or you go to select, toggle quick mask. But you'll notice the entire image, because nothing was selected, the entire image is selected, so it masks the whole thing. Everything's protected. So what you're going to want to do in this case is before you toggle it on, let's toggle it back off, do select invert. And now toggle the quick mask on. You don't see anything yet, but if I now take my paintbrush and it has a feathered edge. You always want like a nice feathered edge on your brush. And I start painting along here. This is in effect, I'm drawing a mask. It's a selection. It's the same concept as selection, but it's an inverted mask. In other words, anything I mask is actually protected. There's a little area in here. Let me just dab that and maybe shrink my brush size a bit. Bring it down to a 27. You can get those areas. Get this grass over here. And again, I really like this technique because you're just brushing in your selection. And it's just kind of a neat way to quickly select something. It doesn't have to be super, super clean. And here we go. Selecting this here, and I'm going to select this area here. There goes my dog going crazy. Probably a mailman at the door. And we color around there. All right, let's zoom out. Just doing my minus sign to zoom out. Now we're going to toggle the mask off. So you can either do that down here in the lower left corner, or you can go up to your select menu and just say toggle quick mask. Okay, now you can see there's selection down here. But remember, this is masked, it's protected. So if I were to go to colors, levels, and then shoot the levels up here, grab this here, you can see the grass is protected. So what I want to do, because I want to work with the grass and protect the city, I'm going to invert, or Command I, invert the selection. Okay, now it just inverted it, so now it's just the grass that's selected. So if I go adjust the hue saturation on the grass, and in this case it's just the greens, Shift plus to, hold on, I want to zoom in so we can see what we're doing here. Okay, and bring that back up. Hue saturation. I'm going to toggle the green on and push the saturation on green up. And you could see it coming through a little more. If you want to do it a second time, you can toggle the green on, get even more in there. You could also go color balance. The color balance works well in terms of go to the opposite of magenta, which is towards green. And you can see you're really, now of course we're getting too heavy, but minus sign to zoom out. There you go. You see you've got Shift Command A to deselect. Now we've got a lot of colors in this image. Now the last part of this tutorial challenge is we're going to go get the sky. We're going to go select all. We're going to copy it. We're going to flip back to the image we're working with, and we're going to select paste as new layer. And we're going to take the move tool, move this guy over here, and we have our scaling tools over here. And you notice there's shortcuts. Get used to your shortcuts. The scale tool, the first one here, says Shift S, gives a scale. Let's try that, Shift S. And you see the scale tool pops up, and it has these little anchors on it. Now if I lock the scale with this chain up here in the scale properties, pulling on the height symmetrically scales the width. You could do that. If you don't need it because it's the sky, if it was a face you'd see the distortion, but because it's a sky you can distort it any way you want. You could unlock that and you can just scale it one way or the other. And we hit return. And there we've got our sky, our new sky that is scaled. Of course it's on top of the city. We want to take this layer, drag this layer beneath the Montreal layer. And now we have our new sky, and we can move that around until we find a position for it that seems right for the city. And then finally, once all of this is done, you're going to want to export it, and you have many options here. So if you do a save as, you'll get some GIMP options. and in particular you can put the XCF in there with it and the Gimp metadata. But to go to other formats such as JPEG, if you want to compress all the layers into one, you can go export as, open this select file type by extension, and you'll notice it's in alphabetical order. You can select different options like the HEIC, which I think is the Apple iPhone. You have the JPEG image, the most common one if you're going to use it on the web. And even Photoshop. You can save this as a Photoshop image, hit export, give it a name up here, and that would be exported. And then you can open that with Photoshop or send it to somebody. They could open it with Photoshop and the layers will all be there. And so that's basically a repeat of the earlier Photoshop lesson tutorial that we did on selection tools, selection techniques, saving selections, and masking as a form of selection, and adjusting brightness levels and hue saturation levels.